Right, it's vest time now. So, whether or not you did the other side, the boot, that's fine, it's up to you. It doesn't really change what we're going to do now. We are going to finally tackle this vest. Now, the vest has been annoying me greatly because it's just been kind of sat there, and it obviously needs some TLC. Now, having a look at this, there were a couple of things I didn't really like about this vest. First of all, I don't like how chunky it is. That's the first thing there, so I'm still not really happy with the overall form of it per se. It still looks a little bit thick, so I'm going to try and basically in this video at least just change some elements about that, but mainly to make it look less thick will come down to the folds that we'll paint on it. Okay, so just like we did with the glove there, I think you'll agree that if we took the fold style that we did for the shirt, it's going to appear very thin material, as opposed if we did the folds on the glove, it's going to look like very thick material. Okay, so that's going to be alleviated with the folds that we won't do in this video. But what I realized here, we've got a few issues, and this is what a lot of kind of 2D artists do. And can you see here that we initially, well, what we've got here, we initially thought that this fold would be better over there. And that's fine, that looked good, provided that the strap wasn't there. We've got a strap here, and it's flowing the same way, so we've got this section over here that has absolutely nothing going on, and it looks very plain, it looks very boring, it looks very dull and uninteresting. Okay, it's not very good. So this is what I propose. I propose we flip it. We mirror it. Okay, so essentially when we mirror it, this kind of pullover here will actually be on this side, and the strap there will kind of cover the bareness that we see there already. Now, of course, you can flip this idea on its head and actually flip the strap around, but you'd have to move the shoulder strap over there. And I always kind of feel like that the right hand shoulder, like if you look at somebody like Cloud's design, I guess, from Final Fantasy VII, you know, usually the dominant arm has the most kind of armor on the shoulder or the arm. Okay, so that's the kind of same idea I'm employing here. So I very much want the strap to still be favored towards her right side, which means the strap has to come over, hang down her left. Okay, so the vest has got to flip. So let's go over to said vest, and we'll do this at the lower subdivision level just so it's less for ZBrush to process. And we'll go over to deformation, and we will hit mirror. Now it tells you straight away, hey, what do you think you're doing? This function can't be applied to a mesh with multiple subdivision levels, because of course it can't. Don't know why, but it's like that. Okay, so what we've got to do first is we've basically got to say goodbye to the highest subdivision levels, but that's fine. We have yet to do anything meaningful with those higher subdivision levels, and we'll go over to mirror, and we'll now hit mirror. Now it's gone completely off course as expected, so let's go over to offset, and we'll bring that back under the x-axis to roughly the same spot. There you go. Okay, now there's a couple of things we've got to change, obviously, because it's not a one-to-one kind of copy and paste job, right? We will have to go around, and I recommend we'll use the move tool rather than the move topological brush, and we'll just kind of expand out some of these areas that we had before. And now's our chance to really do that kind of final bit of maneuvering before we do any other work to it. Okay, so just try your best to fit the vest now, once it's been mirrored to the side of the body that it now sits on. Okay, it won't be a one-to-one, unfortunately. And then here, for instance, we just have to lift that up a little bit, and there's a bit of clipping through there. That's okay, no problems. And then obviously here, a little bit more. Okay. Alright, and obviously the other thing that's got to change as well is these kind of belt straps there. Now they are the same tool as this kind of 3-strap thing that we've got going on there as well. Now as far as I remember, there's no subdivision levels, so this should easily mirror across as well. But they will be a little bit offset, so we're just going to have to bring them back, put them into position as so. And that was quite lucky. They actually sat back where they used to be. Okay, so now what we've got here, we've got a much better composition. We've got the straps kind of covering, keeping that layer interesting there, that side. And we've got this fold over part here, which kind of got rid of the blandness that was there earlier. Okay, now there's a couple of changes I want to make. There's always a couple of changes I want to make. Having a long think about this, I think it's better to move this kind of purple area more over towards the shoulder, because it just doesn't look quite right as it is. I kind of want this to be a solid layer that's a little bit more over her shoulder. So I'm just going to pull from this edge here, and I'm using Move Topological to try to not affect any of the other areas as much as possible, but it's going to eventually affect them. So don't worry too much if you end up pulling on some elements you don't mean to. Okay, so just a little bit over, and what I'm looking for here is I'm just going to try and bring it over to the shoulder as much as possible and then straighten it out like so. I'm just got to check the curvature here as well. Try and keep the edge straight. Okay, so we're looking for something like that. Okay, just so we've got a bit more sort of volume in the vest. It's not kind of curved over so much and kind of favoring the center. It's more kind of sitting on her actual shoulders now. Okay, now we will have to move these elements back, of course, but that's fine. That's easily done. As you can see, some elements easier than others. There we go. Do the same for the other side. Now the other side, of course, is covered by the shoulder strap, but we do have to get things looking correct even without the shoulder strap there. So let's hide said shoulder strap for now. There we go. And we'll just do exactly the same thing we did on the other side on this side. Okay, so try and straighten it up. And this will kind of muck around with our topology just ever so slightly. But that's where Z-Remesh comes in, which is why it's good to do it now before we do any sort of styling to this vest. Then we'll only have to Z-Remesh it and lose all of that, which we don't want. Okay. Alright, and that side seemed to turn out a little bit better there. We didn't kind of pull on any other elements that we didn't want to too much like we did the other side. Okay, fabulous. Okay, any other tweaks you want to do them now. I think that is fine for the most part. Now, the other part I want to kind of tweak here is these straps. I want to move these guys up ever so slightly, just above the belt, so that it's just a bit more meaningful. You can kind of see them in action a little bit more. Okay, they're not the final belt, so don't worry about them. Just keep them there, placeholder for now. This belt here, I know it's not part of the strap, so it's part of the vest itself, but I think what I'm going to do with this one here, yeah, we'll recreate that later on. Okay, but actually, just for now, even though it won't be the final one, let's just mask it out. Flip that mask, because I do want to scale this belt up a little bit. Just for reference, I'll show you how much. So I do want to sort of scale it so it's quite chunky like that. Maybe a little bit thinner, because I actually want to have another belt kind of come across the top of it. So this is more like a thick leather pad that wraps all the way around it, if you like. Okay. And if we bring back the placeholder satchel, we can now get a better feel for the overall silhouette of our character. Okay, just come in here now, we'll tidy up some of the collar, because the collar did get affected by that recent change we made. So just take a bit of time just to change this up a little bit. Okay, get it to where you like it, how you like it. Right, okay, I think it's time to change the topology around again. So with this new idea in mind, actually I think what I will do first is just to help this kind of area is kind of bulging out a little bit. So I'm just going to use my standard brush. I'm just going to tuck that in a little bit and just spend a bit of time tweaking the final shape of the vest once again. Just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Get it a bit more form-fitting. Again, it depends on the type of vest you're going for. I want quite a form-fitting vest. So, something a little bit more like that. Let's check the back a bit. The back you could probably just indent a bit more, smooth it out. We've got this area here as well. Just standard brush that up. Okay, right. So if everything all looks good to go, let's do one final Z remesh, shall we? So geometry, should remember our settings. Z remesh, we've got keep groups, we've got keep creases, we do want to keep those creases on, and we do want it to play with the same amount as polys as well, and we can tell it to adapt, that's fine. We're not really bothered about the polygon count per se at the moment. Let's hit Z remesh and see what kind of new results we get. Okay, hopefully a bit more evenly distributed. A little bit more, and there we go, that's a nice distribution of polys this time. Very good. So we have lost a sharp edge on the corner there, but that's fine, we can tweak that. We've lost a sharp edging down here as well, but remember how before I was making such an issue about how thick everything is? Well, now we can finally stop worrying about that, okay? And the reason for it being is that I kept it nice and thick on purpose, just in case you wanted to make any changes and tweaks to it. But now that we're pretty much done with making changes and tweaks to it, we're finally ready to commit to the final thickness of the actual vest. Okay, so what that means is, if you're not sure what I'm getting at, is if we subdivide this now, if things get a little bit thin, in fact you could even go to crease and tell it to basically uncrease all and subdivide. And what that's going to do is going to make this thin. Okay, so instead of looking like a block, which is unrealistic, it's going to make it thin. It's actually going to turn it into a piece of fabric now. But if we softened or smoothed, you can see it's just going to turn into a smooth edge like fabric would be. Okay, now you don't want to go ham and basically make it super thin like that, because that kind of ruins the effect a little bit. You still want to keep it somewhat thick. Okay, so don't go too crazy with it just yet. And before we close this video out, I would be remiss if I didn't say we're going to try and restore these points here that we've got. Okay, so the points we lost under Z remesh there, it's only natural, it happens, but we do have to go about restoring them, and we do want to try and retain that thickness wherever possible at the moment, just so that we don't run into any issues later on. Okay, so if you literally don't have the resolution to do that with, like here for example, you can basically wait till we subdivide it and we can fix it up there. But usually we've got enough resolution there to somewhat create a point, even though it might not be the best and it's quite low res and all that stuff. Okay, let's try best to keep a hold of that thickness. It is a struggle. Okay. There we go, just playing around with the polys a bit. Remember, this is kind of like the antithesis of ZBrush. It doesn't like doing this, keeping rigid areas. It doesn't like that at all. And we just got to do the same thing for down here. I would sort of always try and pull on the center point, and unfortunately it didn't kind of draw a straight line all the way down for us, so we're going to have to push this around a little bit to get some points better established. Always try to pull on the center point, and then you can push back the other areas like this. Okay. There we go. This is the advantage of keeping everything low poly. And apologies if I sound like I'm repeating myself again, but you know, just always nice to get a bit of reaffirmation. Okay, right. Now, the tips of the collar, let's see another part, but I'm just actually going to pull the other parts back a little bit, because I don't want it to be too long, essentially. I just want it to be pointy, so I'm just going to actually just pull back some of the other areas instead. There we go. Slight tweaks, but I'm not pulling it any further out. I'm actually kind of pushing it back in a bit and getting the surrounding areas to kind of shape it into a point instead. Can be a bit tricky, a bit fiddly, and there you go. Okay, so that's the vest changes I want to make at this particular level here, just to share with you now. I'm kind of thinking that we need to keep the groups, because I'm essentially going to two-tone the vest like this. That's kind of how I want the vest to look, is kind of in two tones. Okay, Alright, fabulous. I'm going to leave this video here for now. In the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to subdivide it, and we're actually going to start painting in some folds so we can stop this vest looking like a solid mass, and we can actually get some nice details going on in there instead.